This is an unbelievable turnout. Let me thank Dinah and Jaime and Mia and Simone for those wonderful introductions. And that is what this campaign is about. It's bringing people together.
Yeah.
We began this campaign all of 3.5 months ago, and the momentum, as you can see tonight, has been nothing less than extraordinary.
Yeah!
We have had great crowds in my hometown of Burlington, Vermont, in Denver, in Madison, in Dallas, in Houston, in Portland, in New Orleans. Last night we had 15,000 people out in Seattle.
Yes.
Portland, you have done it better than anyone else. The largest crowd, 20,000 people. And let me begin by reiterating a point that Simone and others have made. And let me make it very clear, simple, and straightforward. There is no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism in this country. And to reform our broken criminal justice system.
Yes!
Today in America, we have the unfortunate distinction of having more people in jail than any other country on earth. I want to see this country not have more people in jail, but have jobs and education.
Yes!
Brothers and sisters, this country today faces more crises than at any time since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And what we are going to do, and what we understand, is that when problems are caused by dumb public policy, good public policy will resolve it. And today we're coming together to develop good public policy.
That's right.
And today we say loudly and clearly that this great nation belongs to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. Today we live in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, but few people understand that or feel that because almost all of the wealth is controlled by a handful of people, and together we are going to change that.
Yes!
more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth, and the gap between the very rich and everyone else is worse today than at any time since 1928.
Unacceptable.
In my view, the issue of wealth and income inequality is the great moral issue of our time. And we are going to inject the issue of morality into politics today. There is something profoundly wrong when the top 1/10% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. There is something profoundly wrong when over 50% of new income generated today goes to the top 1%. There is something profoundly wrong when in recent years we have seen a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, yet the average American is working longer hours for lower wages, and we have, shamefully, the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. That has got to change. That will change.
Yeah.
This campaign is sending a message to the billionaire class. Yes, we have the guts to take you on.
Yeah.
Our message is to the billionaire class, you are not going to continue to get huge tax breaks when children in America go hungry. You are not going to continue shutting down factories in America, sending out jobs abroad when millions of Americans are in desperate need of good food. You are not going to continue to hide your billions in profit in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, where we have enormous unmet needs. The greed of the billionaire class in corporate America is destroying this country. Enough is enough. It's going hands.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the economy, it is not only the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality. It is the tragic reality that in this great country, the middle class, once the envy of the entire world, has been disappearing for the last 40
Yes.
years.
Yes, it has.
Despite exploding technology and increased worker productivity, median family income today is almost $5,000 less than in 1999.
It's not right.
In my state of Vermont, I've been here and argued, it is not unusual to see people not just working one job, working two jobs, working three jobs, trying to cobble together some income and some health care. That is not what the American economy should be. We need an economy that works for working people, not just billionaires. Let me tell you something that is often not discussed. Every month, government comes out with a statistic on unemployment. Last statistic said that official unemployment was 5.3%. But what they forgot to tell you is that statistic did not include those people who have given up looking for work, those people who are working part-time, add it all together, real unemployment is over 10%. And let me tell you something that almost nobody talks about, and that is we have a huge and tragic situation regarding youth unemployment in America. Last month, I asked the Economic Policy Institute to do a study to find out what real youth unemployment and underemployment was in America. And this is what they came up with. For kids who are high school graduates between 17 and 20, if you're white, real unemployment, 33%. If you are Hispanic, real unemployment, 36%. If you are African American, real unemployment for those kids, 51%. We cannot turn our backs on an entire generation of young people.
That's right.
And if anybody thinks that those outrageously high unemployment numbers for our young people are not connected with the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country, you would be sorely mistaken. So my view is that instead of investing in jails and incarceration, what about jobs and education? The United States to continue to have the distinction of having more people in jail, more lives ruined than any other country. I want our country to have the distinction of having the best educated population.
Yes! Yes! That's what we need!
And when we talk about the economy, let us be very clear. Millions of our fellow Americans are working at wages that are much, much too low. People should not, in this country, have to work 50 or 60 hours a week in order to survive. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. It has got to be raised to a living I applaud those cities, Seattle, Los Angeles, and others who have raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. exactly what we will do at the federal level. 15 votes. Brothers and sisters, it is not a radical idea to say that in this country, if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty.
That's a fact.
And when we talk about decent and fair wages, there is another injustice that we must address. And men, talking to the guys now, stand with the women and demand pay equity for women. Defensible reason why women are making 78 cents on the dollar compared to men. That is going to change. Now, I know that many of you have heard my Republican colleagues talk about family values. They just love families. But you and I know what they mean by family values. What they mean is that women in this country should not be able to control their own bodies, and I disagree. What they mean is that women are not smart enough to be able to purchase the contraceptives they need. I disagree. And what they also mean when they talk about their family values is that our gay brothers and sisters should not be able to marry or enjoy all of the benefits of citizenship. I disagree. I have 4 kids and 7 beautiful grandchildren. My wife Jane and I have been married for 27 years. We believe in family. But our view of family values is just a little bit different than the Republican view. In my view, when we talk about family values, we must end the international embarrassment of the United States of America being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee workers paid medical and family leave. Let me tell you what that family value really means. Today, here in Oregon or Vermont, a woman is having a baby. That is an enormous day for that woman, for the dad, pretty big day for the baby as well. But here's the story, and I want you to think about this, because this really gets to the heart of what family values are about. If that woman and that family have sufficient income, she will be able to stay home for weeks and months to love that new baby, to bond with that baby, And that is maybe the most important thing that a human being
Yes!
But, and here's the but. If that woman in Vermont, in Oregon, does not have sufficient income, that woman will be forced to separate herself from her newborn baby and go back to work in 5 days, 8 days, 2 weeks. That is not a family value. And that is why I will fight for 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave. Allowing a mom and a dad to know their newborn baby is a family value if that expression means anything. As a result of the collapse of the American middle class, some of you know, some of you don't. But in America today, our people work longer hours than do the people of any other major country. 85% of men working more than 40 hours, 65% of women working more than 40 hours. And yet, there are new jobs being offered every day that have zero paid vacation. We need every worker in America to have 2 weeks paid vacation. And we need paid sick leave for every American worker as well.
Get disease out of the workplace.
When pollsters ask the American people what is on their mind, the answer always is jobs. People are worried about the fragility of the economy. If they're 55, they're worried they'll be fired tomorrow, replaced by somebody half their wage, half their age, and half their wage. If they are young, high school graduate, college graduate, very difficult to find the kinds of work that pay them the wages they need. In my view, we need a major federal jobs program. A program which rebuilds our crumbling roads and bridges and water systems. In America, our infrastructure should not be collapsing. We have introduced legislation, $1 trillion over 5 years, creating up to 13 million decent paying jobs. And when we talk about jobs, it's not only the need to create jobs, it's the need not to lose jobs. You are looking at a senator and a former congressman who voted against NAFTA, permanent role of and I will help lead the effort against the disastrous Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Keep fighting!
Corporate America has got to understand that the time is now to invest in the United States of America and not countries around the world. Brothers and sisters, when we talk about greed, when we talk about arrogance, when we talk about thievery, these are just some of the words to describe what goes on in Wall Street. The greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior of Wall Street drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. And today, I find it interesting, by the way, that we see kids getting criminal records for having marijuana, but the CEOs of these large institutions get away with nothing.
Yeah, that's bullshit!
How does it happen that when these CEOs and big-time executives on Wall Street destroy the economy, resulting in millions of Americans losing their jobs, their homes, their life savings, nothing happens to them except they end up making more money now than they did before? That is going to change. The truth is today that most of the major financial institutions are bigger now than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. In my view, number one, we have got to reestablish Glass-Steagall. We have got to break these financial institutions up. If a bank is too big to fail, that bank is too big to exist.
You're damn right!
System in which banks invest in small and medium-sized businesses, helping people buy their homes, not an island unto themselves. Yeah. My friends, let me be as blunt as I can and tell you something that I think most of you already know. And that is, as a result of the disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. As a result of that decision, the American political system has been totally corrupted, and the foundations of American democracy are being undermined.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court said to the wealthiest people in America, they said, guys, you already own much of the economy, you're already fantastically wealthy, but now we're going to give you the opportunity to buy the United States government. And that is exactly what they are about to do if we do not stop them. If you can believe it, one family, the Koch brothers, an extreme right-wing family. This is a family, the second wealthiest in America, that wants to end, wipe out Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the EPA, the postal system. They think a $7.25 minimum wage is too high. They want to abolish the concept of the minimum wage. This one family in this election cycle is spending more money than either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. When you have a multi-billionaire family spending more money than either of the two major political parties, that is not democracy. That is oligarchy. What we are fighting for, and let me be straightforward and tell you this, we are fighting to maintain our democracy and prevent our government from being owned by a handful of billionaires and the politicians they employ. Made very few campaign promises during this campaign, but I want to repeat one promise to you that I have made, and that is my nominees to the U.S. Supreme Court will in fact have a litmus test, and that test will be that they will have to tell the American people that their first order of business on the Supreme Court will be to overturn. We have to overturn Citizens United if we believe, as I do and I know most of you do, that America must be a vibrant democracy, a democracy which has one of the highest voting turnouts in the world, not one of the lowest. A democracy in which any person in this arena tonight, regardless of his or her political views, you're progressive, conservative, moderate, no matter what you are, I want you to be able to run for office without begging billionaires. That is why we must move to public funding. I want to touch briefly on another issue. A few days ago, I was at an event with Martin Luther King III and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, one of the important civil rights groups in America. And what we talked about were two things. Number one, we celebrated the victory 50 years ago of the Voting Rights Act. Is it said that every American, regardless of the color of your skin, will have the right to vote. But as many of you know, 2 years ago, the Supreme Court gutted a very important provision of the Voting Rights Act, and immediately afterward, states all over the country began to make it harder for people to vote, move toward voter suppression. Now, in my view, voter fraud is a very serious crime, and people who commit it should be punished. But the good news is there is almost no voter fraud anymore. Republican governors and legislatures did is come up with all kinds of road barriers to make it harder for people of color, poor people, old people to vote. Suddenly you had to have all kinds of voter identification. Voting lists were purged if you didn't vote in the last few elections, and their goal was very clear. Their goal was to make it harder for people who would vote against them to participate in the political process. That was their goal. You know, I am a politician, and I've run in a lot of elections. I've won many, I've lost some. But it has never occurred to me that the way to win an election is to deny people who disagree with me the right to vote. And let me be as clear as I can be. Those people who don't have the guts to run on their ideas, who think the only way they win an election is by denying people who disagree with them the right to vote, are cowards.
Yeah!
If you run for office, have the guts to stand behind your ideas. Don't be afraid of people voting against you.
Yeah!
President, one of my highest priorities will be to end all of this voter suppression. We'll pass universal voting rights so that everybody, when they are 18, will be able to vote.
Yeah.
That we live in a highly competitive global economy, and if this country is going to survive economically, we need the best educated workforce in the world.
Yeah.
And today, what is going on with regard to higher education is a national disgrace. We have in America today hundreds of thousands of bright young people, people who have studied hard, people who are qualified to go to college. But they cannot go to college for one reason. Their family lacks the money.
That's a waste!
And that is wrong. It is not only unfair to those young people who want the opportunity to become doctors and engineers and teachers, but it is dumb if we're concerned about the future of our economy.
That's true.
And that is why I have introduced legislation which does two things. First, it says that every public college and university in America will be tuition free. That not only makes life easier for people who are thinking of going to college, but I'll tell you what else it does in a very profound way. There are kids today in Portland, there are kids in Burlington, Vermont, who in the 3rd or 4th grade, they know that they're never going to make it to the middle class. Their parents have never gone to college. They don't know anybody who has gone to college. And they're sitting around saying, why should I study hard? What difference does it make? Who cares if I drop out of school or not? When we tell every kid in America that if you study hard, you take school seriously, you will be able to go to college, that will revolutionize education.
Yes, it will!
part of that legislation deals with another hugely consequential issue. There are millions of Americans today who are suffering under the burden of outrageous student debt. And some of them are here tonight. A couple of years ago, I had a meeting in Vermont, met with a number of young people. And there was a woman who committed the great crime of wanting to become a doctor, go to medical school, and practice primary care for low-income people, exactly the kind of doctors we need. She came out of medical school $300,000 in debt. I was in Iowa a few months ago, met a woman who just graduated dental school. We have a dental crisis in America. We need more dentists. She left school $400,000 in debt. And all over this country, people graduate school $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in debt, and they are paying interest rates of 7%, 8%, 10%. Now, I don't understand how someone can refinance their home today at 2 or 3%, and somebody is paying 10% interest rates on student debt. So this legislation deals with that issue in two ways. First, we are going to allow people with student debt to refinance at lower interest rates. Second of all, we're going to get the government out of profiteering on student loans. Makes no sense to me that we have millions of people who are paying 20–25% of their limited income on student loans. That is going to change. When we talk about our responsibilities as human beings, as people who inhabit this planet, as caretakers for the earth, we must understand that we have a moral responsibility to leave this planet habitable for our kids and our grandchildren. The scientific community, and I'm on both the Energy Committee and the Environmental Committee, and we talk to these guys all the time. They are virtually unanimous in telling us climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, it is already causing devastating problems, and we have a small window of opportunity to transform our energy situation and our energy system before the situation becomes much worse.
Renewables, baby!
And we can create economic democracy.
What they tell us is if we do not act boldly in the next few years, this planet of ours, our only planet, will be between 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it is today by the end of the century. And what that means, picture what it means. More drought, more flood, more extreme weather disturbances, more rising sea levels, more acidification of the ocean, more international conflict as people fight for limited resources of water and land. Our moral responsibility is to lead the world, work with China, work with Russia, work with India. to move our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainability. And when we talk about issues facing our country, please understand that we remain the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care as a right to all people. The Affordable Care Act has made some progress, but 35 million still have no health insurance, and more are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. It is my view that health care is a right for all people. That is why I believe we must move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program. I am the ranking member of the Budget Committee, which means I lead the Democrats in